Boxer engines. One of the most iconic automotive sounds out there is the rumble of that flat 4 EJ powering all four wheels of the Subaru WRX STI. It's been the heart of the STI for 26 years. And now, Subaru, they're throwing it out and they're putting in an engine from an SUV. Now, if that burns your britches, chaps your bun, tans your hide, it just plain ticks you off. Oh, I have good news for you. This engine is the best engine the STI has ever had. And today, I'm gonna show you exactly why. We're gonna look at this new FA24 engine and find out where it's hiding all that buff boxer potential. Don't believe Subaru could turn a mom-mobile motor into a flat 4 phenom? Well, I guess we just gotta show you. Let's go. A huge thanks once again to our friends over at Keeps for sponsoring another episode of Bumper to Bumper. I'm gonna be straight with you guys. I have a weird shaped head under this hat and all this hair. So I need my hair. Without it, I'd look something like this. The numbers are in, and 2 out of 3 guys will experience some form of male pattern baldness by the time they're 35. And if you still have hair and you're worried about losing it, prevention is key, my friend. Keeps offers a full treatment to prevent hair loss, almost as powerful as my RC51 back there. Vroom, 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 vroom. Oh, So start your treatment today and keep your weird head hidden by all that lush, beautiful hair, just like I do. Can't even tell how weird this head is. You can even visit a doctor online and get hair loss medication delivered right to your door every 3 months. You never need to leave your house, which is pretty good right now. Avoid the dreaded comb over and start your treatment today. Go to keeps.com/B2B or click the link in the description to receive a special offer on Keeps hair loss treatments. That's KEEPS.com/B2B. Thank you for supporting the companies that support us here at Donut. Now, if you don't know, the rumors are all but confirmed that the new Subaru WRX STI is coming in 2022 with a revised version of the FA24 engine currently in the Subaru Ascent. And supposedly, the STI will make a total 400 horsepower to the wheels. Now, to put that in quick perspective, that's 90 more than the current STI, 60 more than the most powerful STI, and 140 more than what the Ascent makes right now. Now, quick note before we get too deep, we're gonna be saying FA and EJ a lot today. Now, if you don't know what those mean, it's simply the engine code that Subaru uses to identify their boxer power plants. Now, EJs were the 2-liter and 2.5-liter engines that came in the WRX and the STI all the way from the beginning, and the FA engines are the new platform. Now, these engines don't have the same Subi rumble, but it's theoretically got more power. So, where is that extra power coming from? Well, let's take a look. One of the main things that's new for the FA engines is direct fuel injection, as opposed to the EJ's port injection. Now, port injection is when your fuel injector is placed in the intake manifold upstream of the intake valve, and the air and fuel mix there before they enter the cylinder. Now, the upside of that is that the air and fuel have a longer time to mix before they enter into the cylinder. But the downside is that it's less precise on the air-fuel ratio because you're losing a little bit of fuel as it sticks to the intake valve. Now, direct injection means that fuel is shot directly into the cylinder. It's injected directly, just like the spark is. And the fuel is fired much later and much more precisely than port injection, and it's fired in a much higher pressure. And there are plenty of benefits from this. Now, the system is more efficient, meaning better fuel economy. That's good. And also, it cools the cylinder because it sprays a nice mist of fuel on the cylinder walls. And that lowers the temperature of the wall, reducing the chance of pre-ignition or engine knock that might occur from the combustion chamber's heat. Think about that heat. The cylinders get so hot that they can sometimes, when you inject fuel in, cause it to auto-ignite. It's not good. It creates knock, ping. You don't want it. You don't want it. Ultimately, direct injection is better for fuel efficiency and engine health, which overall lets the engine safely hold more power. But there are some downsides to it. There's always good and bad. Direct injection needs the engine to be warm to atomize fast enough and mix with the air. And to overcome that, they need a lot more fuel on a cold start. Now trust me, direct injection is the way to go. But if you're not sold on it, then I got some good news for you, okay? If you will please indulge me and take a quick trip over to the speculation zone. Now in the current Subaru BRZ, also the Toyota GT86, Toyota's fancy D4S fuel system uses both port and direct injection. And it's actually a very simple system. The direct injectors are strong enough to run the engine at high RPM, but for better startup, the engine splits the work between the two sets of injectors at cold start. Literally the best of both worlds. And this version of the D4S system isn't in the FA24 engine currently, but it could be added assuming the STI isn't going to use the same intake manifold. Now our buddies over at Prime Motoring in New Jersey have been tuning Subarus for years, and they took a closer look at the existing FA24. And they've been tinkering with it just to see what the new STI is going to be capable of. And with a new intake manifold, the FA24 could totally use this D4S system from the BRZ. But that's not the only promising thing they found in the new engine. The block and head themselves has some hidden heft as well. Even though it's still a flat 4 and it's got about the same displacement as the old EJ257, the FA24 is 100% new engine, and Subaru has had a lot of time to improve on how they make power. The cylinder head on this new engine has more of a straight shot for airflow than the EJ had, with its more dog-leg path for the air to go through. You know what a dog-leg is. It look like this, look like a bent Cheeto. Now you may not think that these little angles could slow down free-flowing air, but in an engine, and especially in a turbocharged engine, a free-flowing path is super duper important. Now if the pathway is causing air to bounce around, creating turbulence and pressure pockets, the air can only go so fast, and at high revs, it can't get air into the cylinder fast enough. So we always want a freer flowing head to get us more air, because we know our famous equation, more air plus more fuel equals more power. Now we've already got more fuel from the direct injection, and now we've got more air. But for every engine, there's a breaking point. A point where if you put too much air in, and you put too much fuel in, you're gonna get too much combustion for the block to handle. And the main thing about an engine's block is that it's got to be strong. Those cylinder walls have to be thick enough to withstand the pressure that the engine is gonna make, or else, well, there's no easy way to say this, your engine will blow up. Now let's say with a turbocharged engine, you're making 15 pounds of boost or 15 PSI of pressure. That's pressurized air that goes into the cylinder on the intake stroke. And when the piston is fully down, it has the most space available. And then the intake valve closes and that air goes all the way back up, and it gets compressed as the piston gets pushed back up again. And in an engine, let's say with a 10-to-1 compression ratio, you're looking at roughly 150 PSI. That is a lot of pressure, but that's not a lot of pressure compared to what happens next, the spark. Once that spark hits that compressed air and fuel mixture, it ignites, it creates a combustion, and that pressure jumps to anywhere between 300 and 1000 PSI, forcing that piston all the way back down. So the cylinder walls have to withstand that pressure right at the moment of combustion, getting forced all the way down, all the way up, and that's happening thousands and thousands of times a minute. So how does the FA24 handle that? Well, he's got thick cylinder walls. And not only does he have thicker cylinder walls than its EJ Bro, it's got more cylinder support molded into the casting. And in an engine that can take more pressure, you can up the boost or up the compression to make more power. But cylinder walls aren't the only thing that needs to be beefy to make power in an engine. And lucky for us Subi loving boxer boys, the FA24, just like RB sandwiches, it's got more beef inside. Has more beef okay, stop it. The FA engine has been around a little while, and it's gotten its fair share of complaints. But in a way, that was kind of the point. Subaru used the FA20 DIT as a test bed for what the FA24 would eventually become. Inside the SUV engine are some really over-engineered parts. It's almost as if they were designing this engine with something else in mind. Now the connecting rods were a point of failure on the FA20. All that pressure that we talked about earlier, pushing down on the piston, well, it also pushes on the connecting rods, which connect the piston to the crankshaft. Now this is where the direction of our energy changes from the pushing force of the combustion to the rotational force. Now that connecting rod is attached to the crankshaft off center, and it's attached to the piston on a pivoting pin. So as it gets pushed push down, it rotates the crankshaft, thereby rotating your flywheel and eventually rotating your wheels. Linear motion to rotational motion. That's all an engine does. Can you do this? Can you guys do this? I think that's like, yeah, that's like... Now this thing is tough because that energy has to change direction, and that puts a lot of stress on the connecting rods. The more pressure there is, the more likely you're going to bend or break a rod. Now, it's not enough to just say the new engine has stronger rods, so we'll show you instead. Now, the new FA24 rods are almost twice as thick as the old FA20 ones. These things are going to be able to handle a lot more combustion pressure, but the rods aren't the only thing that had an upgrade. FA24 has gone to the new beehive valve springs. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Now, beehive refers to the shape of those springs. Normal springs look like this. They're shaped like a normal spring. Now, beehive springs are smaller at the top and bigger at the bottom, kind of like a beehive, or maybe like one of those honey dripping tools that people use. You know, you dip it in honey. I actually have one. You want me to go get it? I can show them. Okay, so what I do know is that these valve springs make a big difference. They're designed to increase effective spring rate and combat valve float. And as your engine revs higher and higher, the camshaft spins faster and faster, and the cams push those valves open, and the valve springs are what push the valve closed back again. But what if your cam is spinning so fast that it pushes the valve open again before the spring can fully close it? Well, this is called valve float, and to fix it, you need stronger valve springs. And you can go with thicker springs. You can double or triple the strength of those springs, but that adds a lot of wear to your valve train. Now, beehive springs have a progressive spring rate and overall require less force to move them at the same speed as normal springs. So the upshot of this is that you get less wear on your valve train. That's great. And your springs can also handle revs about 500 to 700 RPM higher than they could with a traditional spring. So thanks, Beehive Spring. So all this new stuff is, in theory, gonna make the new STI a better platform than the old EJ1. And even though Subaru hasn't pushed the EJ beyond 340 horsepower, I'm sure some of you are gonna point out that tuners have been able to push it way beyond 400 horsepower. In fact, we showed you an 800 horsepower one on this very show. Now most tuners will say to get 400 horsepower reliably, it takes forged pistons, forged rods, new bearings, new machining, a bunch of new parts, right? I mean, basically you're taking the whole engine apart and replacing half of it. For the new FA24, to get that same 400 horsepower, it looks like it might take a lot less. Prime Motoring has been putting these engines to the test. Here's their engine mounted in a Crosstrek, making 500 horsepower to the wheels with nothing but bolt-ons and a tune. And even the turbo and cams and ECU are just the OEM ones from a WRX. And they've run it on the dyno over 50 times. Look, EJ engines are sick, and if you want to know more information about them, go watch this episode Up to Speed. James is gonna gush all over them. It's a really great episode. But let me tell you, the FA is the wave of the future, and it's going to provide us with some super high horsepower, reliable WRXs. And man, there's nothing more we can ask for.